What is going on, soccer card fiends? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here to talk about the Messi market. I wanted to make a video just discussing this and kind of throwing my thoughts out there. Personally, I think it's the most undervalued segment in the hobby right now, or I guess underpriced segment. It's sort of an enigma to me right now. I understand it to an extent, but at the same time, I certainly don't. Before we go ahead and get into it, of course, I have some Messi rookies, so I have a vested interest, I guess, in it, but I would make this video no matter what, because it's very, very intriguing to me. Whenever people talk about cards that they have, obviously there's some sort of worry of pump and dump, but you can certainly trust that I don't plan on dumping Messi. Messi is the best player I've ever seen, so I certainly would like to have as many rookies as I possibly can over time. So honestly, it's against my best interest to make this video, but I really don't have that big of a following, so I can do things like this and it's still okay, so that's cool. But with that said, let's go ahead and get on into it. So we'll start by talking about the current market conditions, where we are at. So if you've been following along, we had a big run up in March, and after that there's been a substantial dip that has continued. We haven't really kicked back up at all. We have in certain segments, and that'll be the first thing that we talk about here. Vintage is doing really good. In the last 4 or 5 months, it had a huge run up. It's sort of mellowed out a little bit right now, but that's good because honestly it had quite the boom. So personally, I think that makes sense. On top of that, rarity is something that has been able to keep up pretty well. Numbered stuff in the ultra modern games doing pretty good, and a big reason that vintage and rare cards in general are doing very well is because whenever the market drops like it has, a lot of people get scared for the base cards, get scared for the cards you can readily find, and they want to go to cards that have some sort of rarity, have some sort of difficulty to achieve. And that's good to an extent, but the problem is whenever everyone in the market's thinking that way, then you're going to have this situation again where people are flooding into something that they don't truly want just because the market condition tells them to do that, and then eventually whenever the market turns back around, those markets aren't going to be as good to be in. But that's just the cycle of markets. That's just kind of the give and the take that goes with it. So it's nothing necessarily bad. It just is what it is at the moment. And along with those two things, we have the PSA pop report, and this is something that's very, very important in this whole thing. And so cards that have readily increased in pop, the cards that PSA is pumping back to the people, are ones that are taking a pretty big hit because people think that they're something that will be readily available for a long time. These are cards that they don't have to worry about, that they can come back and get in, a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So a lot of people have refocused their desires on the rarity, and that's good to an extent. But the problem is people do that too much, I would say. Whenever the market was just booming, people loved base. Whenever the market was going down, no one cared about base, as if it was some sort of toxic card that no one would ever post. I mean, you look around on Instagram now, like barely anyone's posting base cards. Whenever the boom was going on, you'd see base cards all the time because that's what people like. And so that's just the cyclical nature of it all, and that's sort of where we're at the moment. So in terms of cards with supply, here are some Messi examples. We have the modern example of 2014 Prism, quite a lot of supply. We'll talk more about that in a second. We also have World Cup stickers. Those are pretty heavily produced, so there's a consistent flow of those coming into the market, along with other segments of cards. These aren't the only ones, but these are the primary ones that have been kind of flooding back into the market. And then on top of that, you have Messi rookies. Messi is an example of a pre-modern player that did have a good amount of releases. So in terms of Messi rookies, it's not like they're rare by any means. There's a good amount of them, and a good amount of them on the market, at least for now. Now, how long will that be the case? We'll never know. Personally, I think that we always won't see the same sort of supply that we're seeing now, but because we're seeing the sort of supply that we are now, people believe that this is the market, and so people aren't rushing out to get their Messi rookies, which makes sense to me. With that said, these cards have been having a good amount of flow back from PSA, and so as that happens, the price of them has slowly been diminished for the last 3-6 months, and we'll talk more about that now. So looking at the Messi cards that I previously stated, we have the Prism base on the left hand side here. Its price in March for a PSA 10 was $1,000, and its price now is $285. So obviously that's a pretty substantial loss right there, losing about 70% of your money, and that will be a consistent theme if you're looking at the other cards as well. With the Prism base, though, the thing is, as you can see down there, the pop for the PSA 10 is almost 2,000. So that's very important. That is very important. It honestly is surprising to me that this PSA 10 is even held up at 285, given the fact that there are 2,000 PSA 10s and 3,000 PSA 9s, because, I mean, that's just a lot of cards. I mean, we don't even need to really dig into that too much, but that's a lot of cards. So, I'm actually surprised that it's holding up like that. I don't know if it'll bounce back up. I mean, I find it hard to believe that Messi 2014 Prisms would have a run to like $500 at this point, if there's a couple thousand lingering out there. But yeah, I don't know. That one's a little baffling to me. In terms of the PSA 9 World Cup sticker for Messi's first World Cup, that was also worth $1,000 in March, and now is down to 225. And if we look at the pop down there for the PSA 9, there's only 192, and there's 593 total graded. So as far as the sticker goes, I mean, at least for now, much more rare than the modern example of the Prism. Now, will that stay the case? I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of 2006 stickers that float around. Personally, I have a good amount of sealed boxes, and I see other people with sealed boxes, so it's not like it's anything that it has a finite supply, so you don't have to rush out and get it by any means. But just looking at it compared to the Prism, I mean, it has a tenth of the pop, so at least in graded, I could see it, you know, having a little bit of a bounce here and there just because there aren't as many of them, but over time that pop will certainly go up. But again, I mean, as you can see there, basically an 80% drop in price. Now keep in mind, a lot of the reason that these were so expensive in March has to deal with the PSA backlog, and the PSA backlog's a big factor in everything. PSA's been pumping out cards endlessly without being able to take in new cards for, you know, like 9 months now. I mean, it's been happening for a while. So whenever people can't submit new cards, they can't roll that into new stuff, but they keep getting their cards back and sending them on the market. Essentially, it's just a one-way trip where the market just keeps going down. And we're getting towards the end of that. I have some cards that are in the backlog right now, and whenever I look at sort of the orders from the group submitter that I went through, it seems like we're getting towards the end of the backlog, which is really, really motivating. Kind of nice to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but essentially, how long will these keep dropping? Who knows? Now, I mean, honestly, if the World Cup stickers start getting even lower, I might start buying, because I do remember buying Messi stickers raw for like 30, 40 bucks, maybe 50. And I didn't think that was terrible. But a PSA 9, I mean, if it ended up getting down to like 150 or something like that, I mean, I don't know. You might have me. But finally, looking at the rookie, here we have a PSA 9 of the Campeon, number 35. So here, the price in March was 11.4 grand for a PSA 9, and the price now is 2.5 grand. So about an 80% drop in price, and that fits with what else we're seeing across the board here. If we look at the pop there are two different numbers because there are two different versions of this card. So the top one is the Spanish version at 436, and the bottom one is the Catalan version at 225. And looking there, I mean, the combined pop would be higher than the World Cup sticker, and that's just something that's a little bit deceiving because people are way more likely to submit a rookie than they are a World Cup sticker. So take that with a grain of salt in terms of the World Cup sticker. But as far as the rookie goes, again, just a massive dip. And something that I'll talk more about as we go on is you'd expect the first card to dry up in terms of supply on the market would be the rookie. Because, you know, people aren't going to chase the World Cup sticker if the rookies are still out there readily available. And people aren't going to chase the modern 2014 Prism if rookie cards and World Cup stickers are still out there available. So that's the Messi comparison. Looking at his rookies more in particular, here here we have the SD sticker, where his PSA 9 in March was about 25 grand, and now his PSA 9 is about 11 grand. It could be even a little lower. That sale was a little bit ago. There aren't many of them popping up. As you can see in the pop report, only 38 PSA 9s, and across the board there's only 160 graded at the moment. The SD sticker had the highest production out of anything because, well, it's a sticker, very easy to produce, and it has good lineage. But a lot of them were put into the album, so then you basically destroyed a lot of them, which is really nice in terms of, I guess, present day value. With the 71 bis, that has dropped from 53k to 36k in a PSA 9. Pretty impressive, honestly, that it held up the most during this, but it makes sense. Anyone that's spending 50k on a card like that isn't going to panic sell, or I guess also PSA isn't putting as many of these back into the market, while compared to other cards that are readily getting more and more and more supply on the market, there's not, you know, PSA 9s of the 71 bits just floating around. So if you look at that pop count, makes a lot of sense as well. Only 37 PSA 9s and 430 total graded. You can tell the pop count's more flushed out here because the grade with the most supply is the PSA 6. So that's how you know that people are sending even cards that aren't in the best condition, which is a sign that that card is slowly being flushed out onto the market. In terms of the Monday Chromo PSA 9, in March that was 8 grand and now is 3 grand. And looking at that pop count, it has 711 total and 200 in a PSA 9. So the Monday Chromo out of all the Messi rookies seems to have the most supply in terms of grade, but it also was the earliest, and it has a nice little set that it is in. It's pack pulled rather than some of the, I guess, the Campio or the Campiones that's essentially just a Barcelona set. So personally, I like the Monday Chromo, but you have to understand that it is actually one that's pretty highly produced. It also is his first rookie card in general, so that's also very appealing. But essentially what we're seeing almost in all of these Messi rookies that I've talked about so far is a 50 to 80% drop in prices compared to the highs that we saw before. And that's really nothing that's that crazy. I mean, obviously it's not ideal if you're someone that holds a lot of Messi rookies, but at the same time, these ebbs and flows are going to happen, and that peak that we saw in March was pretty crazy for a lot of different segments of the hobby. So there was a natural cool down that was going to happen, but I do think at this point in these examples that the Messi market has gotten too cool, and we'll go ahead and compare Messi to some other current players and kind of explain why I think it is that way. So getting into Messi versus Haaland, here we have the Haaland Topps Finest PSA 10. This was worth 2 grand in March and is now down to 650. As you can see there, the pop is 1275, and the Monday Chromo PSA 8 for Messi was worth 4500 in March and now is down to 1600. So comparing these, Messi has almost half of the pop. The PSA 8, in my opinion, if you look, I mean, 228 total graded. If you look at the PSA 9, 204. So essentially, it would seem to me that the PSA 8 Monday Chromo is comparable to the PSA 10 Topps Finest, because having a PSA 8 from 2004 is just as impressive as having a PSA 10 from 2019. I mean, all these cards from the last couple of years are going to be PSA 9s, PSA 10s, so that's nothing impressive. And so for a Messi rookie that I would say is very comparable with a Haaland rookie, if the Messi rookie is only a little over double the price, I think that means the Messi rookie is the better buy all day, because, I mean, like, Haaland's obviously a prospect. As much as we love Haaland, as good as we think he could be, there's so many things that have to happen along the way, and Messi is, in my opinion, and I think in many people's opinion in the market, the best player to ever grace a pitch. Now, even if that's not true, he will go down as the most famous, the best player of this generation, and that's very important. The 7th Ballon d'Or, I feel like, will help cement that. He doesn't have a World Cup, which is a little disappointing, but Ronaldo doesn't either, unless either of these guys gets it in 2022, which I doubt. So, personally, comparing a top prospect to Messi and saying that you could get basically 2 of the top prospect or 1 Messi, I would take 1 Messi every single day of the week. That's the easiest decision ever. Comparing Messi to another top prospect here, we have the PSA 10 rookie ticket of Dusan Vlahovic that was worth $100 in March and is now worth $400. Here I had to go with eBay searches, considering that card was not highly graded since it was only worth $100 in a PSA 10 in March, so people weren't sending these. But that has 12 eBay results for his rookie ticket, while compared to the BGS 8 Campio number 35 on the right hand side, that's went from $2,500 in March down to $600. So at current prices, a PS8 Campio is $200 more than the Dusan Vlahovic, and there's less results on eBay for this Campio version. Now keep in mind, Messi does have a lot of rookies, so you have to take that into account. He has, I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and name them all. I certainly could, but depending on how many variations you count, it's 9 to 12 rookies. But at the end of the day, while Messi might have more rookies and more selection to choose from, like I've mentioned before, he is the greatest player that we have in our generation. So with that, you know, it'll cancel out. There will be enough demand, in theory, if the market keeps on growing. So it's not that big of a deal. And here, I mean, there's... oh my goodness, the difference is not that great. I mean, if you look at the Dusan Vlahovic, the price is $400, the Messi price is $600. So you're telling me for a 50% increase, I can go out and get a Messi rookie instead of prospecting on some rookie, and it just makes so much sense. And there's even less search results for the Campio, and that's wild to me. I mean, you know, we're gonna keep going through examples like this, but I would trade over every single day of the week, because at the end of the day, these prospects, I mean, they can go up in price more, but if the market knows what it's doing, these prospects can't go up to, I mean, like say the Vlahovic, it can't go from $400 to $800 if the Messi rookie goes from $600 to $400. Like if the Messi rookie keeps dropping, these other prospects, they don't have room to grow. I mean, if the market knows truly what's going on and what's good for them, they wouldn't keep prospecting. They would be buying Messi rookies. But you know, I understand at the moment Messi rookies are coming back from PSA a good bit, and you know, Dusan Vlahovic PSA 10s aren't, so people don't see it that way. But over time, it would have to play out that way, you'd imagine, if you truly believe in the soccer market. Now we'll look at Kevin De Bruyne. He has his rookie sticker right there, his number 153 in a PSA 9. That price in March was $2,000 and is now worth $600. And this Messi Campio version that we were talking about before was priced at $2,500 in March and is now worth $600. So you can tell that the Campio of Messi has dropped substantially more percentage-wise, and as far as the population, there is a good bit more of them, but again, you know, it's Messi, so that's going to be negated in terms of the market. Now, Kevin De Bruyne, I will say, while this comparison, it does say that they're of equal prices, you know, the Kevin De Bruyne definitely has a lot less supply in terms of his rookie, so I can understand it to an extent, but at the same time, you know, if I'm someone that's just coming into the hobby, if I'm starting up my collection, I would, you know, hope I do my research and all that, but even understanding that Kevin De Bruyne's are much more rare, much more scarce than Messi's, if I had to go for one, I'd certainly go for the Messi rookie, because, I mean, you know, it's Messi versus Kevin De Bruyne, and I think KDB's great, and I think he could continue to push up his value in the hobby going forward, but at the same time, you know, I don't see tons and tons of people that are diehard KDB stans that, you know, just absolutely love his play, love his cards. It's something that you'll see here and there, and I think it's a good addition in the sense that if you're trying to fill out your collection, like, yeah, you might want to grab one at some point, but if you're thinking of it more from a long-term standpoint, I can't imagine that there's going to be, you know, more people, or even fractionally more people, that are going to desperately want a KDB than there will be people that want a Messi. And that's just, again, the situation at hand and how I see it. And now we'll go on to compare it to another person I feel like is much in the same light of KDB, and that is Robert Lewandowski. So here we have Messi versus Lewandowski. Messi on the right hand side, same card we've already had. The Lewandowski was worth $3,750 in March and is now down to $1,300. So it did also have a pretty good dip, but Messi rookies had a percentage-wise higher dip than the Lewandowski. And looking at the Lewandowski, it has 136 total pop, while the Campio version of the Messi has 225. But if you pay attention here, in high grade, the Campio, there's not too many. In terms of 8s, 9s, and 10s put together, there's almost 100, and in terms of 9s and 10s put together for Lewandowski, there's close to 75. So it's not that much of a difference. And here, the price difference, again, the Lewandowski is over 2 times the price of the Messi. And I understand, and this one I understand more in the sense that Lewandowski actually is a really good player compared to the other players we've talked about. Like, he is the best player we've talked about, and he would be, in my opinion at the moment, one of the best players in the game. And so I get that to an extent, but again, it comes down to how much do people love this player? How much are people willing to go out and spend an exorbitant amount of money on a sticker of this guy? And I don't see that being all that high. Like, if both of these were to double, if Lewandowski was worth 2,500 and Messi was worth 1,200, I could see people almost just staying away from Robert Lewandowski. Like, personally, I don't think I would drop 2,500 on a Lewandowski sticker almost ever. Like, as much as Lewandowski is a polarizing person in the sport, I guess, in the sense of like the Ballon d'Ors lately, and as much as he's won with Bayern, it just doesn't have the same sort of appeal to me. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. I mean, in the hobby, Bayern doesn't get any love almost compared to what they should. And Poland, and there's nothing that they've really done internationally that would make me think that Lewandowski's that type of guy. So I think, cards are obviously a mix of star power and performance on the pitch. And Lewandowski has very little star power. And so with that, paying double the price for a Lewandowski just wouldn't feel right to me. And personally, it doesn't feel right to me, and that's why I don't own one. But basically, I mean, whenever you compare these Messi rookies across the board, it just looks like an absolute bargain. Simply put, Messi's the best player of our generation, might be the best player of all time, and currently we're in a situation where PSA is pumping out his cards back onto the market. Not at an extreme rate, but at a consistent rate where people keep selling, and so we keep undercutting each other, and we have this race to the bottom. But what happens when you've reached that bottom, and then there's no longer this constant flow of PSA cards being put back into the market? I think we'll see that soon. Now, that's not to say that Messi rookies are gonna, be extremely hard to find by any means. You can still find them, but over time it's gonna be in lesser and lesser grade, and then over time it's gonna be the lesser and lesser cards. For example, you'll probably find less S-Day stickers over time. You'll probably find less 71 bis over time, and eventually, there will be a turning point, an inflection point on this type of stuff where you then you go the other way. Whenever the market's going down the way it has been for the last 6-8 months, people just continue to see the negatives. They can only see the downside. And so whenever the market flips and whenever people start seeing the upside and they can only see the upside, what are they going to see the upside in? Are they going to see it in prospects? Maybe, depending on how they're playing. Are they going to see it in second-rate stars like KDB and Lewandowski? Maybe, but I can guarantee you that people will always flock to Messi cards because there's so much nostalgia behind it in terms of Messi. There's so much history behind it. There's so many different cards with great lineage for Messi. And the nice part about the Messi market is that there is supply, at least for now. There's a good amount of supply, so it allows a lot of people to have a good entry point. And so with that, I feel like if you don't believe in the Messi card market at the moment, essentially you don't believe in the card market, because with Messi prices the way they are now, him having reasonable rookies in pretty high grade at $500-$600, if those drop to $200-$300, I mean, what does that mean for the rest of the market? What does that mean for all these prospects that people hope can go up in price? You can't buy a prospect that's $50 and hope he goes to $200 if Messi rookies are at $200-$300. That's just, it's not going to work. You can't buy your HAALAND Topps Chrome Sapphire and his Dortmund kit for $500 or $1,000 or whatever and hope they go to $2,000 or $3,000 if Messi rookies are sitting here. And that's basically at the end of the day the way I see it. The Messi rookies are I guess, the canary in the coal mine, in the sense that whenever the market turns, you'll know, because Messi rookies will turn. But these other segments, they're not as much of a guarantee. And that's not to say that Messi's a guarantee, but that's to say that if you believe in the overall market, Messi's are a guarantee. Because if the soccer card market keeps humming, or starts to hum quite a bit more, like, Messi's have to. They just have to. And so, personally, I think they're a great buy, but obviously, you know, that's just my opinion. I'm some random guy on the internet, so you think for yourself. I would recommend you do that, do your own research, but just putting it out here, making a fun little video. I've just been looking at Messi rookies for a while now, and I've just been in awe the entire time, so I wanted to make a video talking about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Would love to hear your thoughts down below, and a comment on the video as well, what you think of the Messi market, and maybe what you think other overvalued or undervalued segments are in the market. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and